Welcome to the Couch Scouts Podcast. We provide league-winning analysis, advice, and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Scout, draft, win. Here's your host, Matt Cooper.
Welcome to the Couch Scouts Podcast. I am your host, Matt Cooper, and with me is my co-host, Matt Rupert.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. No Matt Jackson this week. He is on vacation, so enjoy your vacation, Mr. Jackson. But we're going to keep trucking along without him, and on tonight's episode of the Couch Scouts Podcast, we are continuing our 4-week series on positional buys and sells. So if you have not caught the previous 3, definitely check that out. We did quarterbacks, we did running backs, we did wide receivers, and now, of course, tonight we are doing the tight end position. And, I feel like sometimes the tight end position can feel like just the forgotten man. It doesn't feel like as sexy to talk about. And I don't know, but I think tight end is an extremely important position on your roster. It's a place that for a contending roster, you can get a real advantage because there's only a few difference makers. And so I'm excited to talk about this position. And even as we go, maybe some game theory of the tight end position will come out as we talk about these specific guys. But Rupert, how do you feel about the tight end position? Are you a tight end guy?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head that they're one of the biggest difference makers, in the league. Like the top 3 guys for tight end just vastly outproduce the guys that, finish tight end 6, 7, 8. So if you're able to land one of the top tight ends, they can be one of the players that can carry you to multiple championships. And due to the longevity they also have at the position, they can, carry your roster and help you create that kind of dynasty you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as we talk tonight, a lot of leagues are tight end premium, which makes them even more significant. And, you can have multiple good ones and use them in a flex spot. But, even if you're not in a tight end premium league, it does matter. And I think what you said is key, because for a long time I thought about it like, okay, if I'm in a 12-team league and I've got one of the top 12 tight ends, then I've got a tight end 1 on my roster and I'm good, right? And you're so right, though, that every year, more than any other position, there's 2 or 3 guys that are absolute difference makers. And then the difference between tight end 4 and tight end 18 most years is like 2 fantasy points a game, maybe. I mean, it's usually not very significant. And all of those guys are basically, you don't know which weeks to start them. You're kind of hoping for a touchdown. None of them are plug and play, set it and forget it every week guys outside of those top 2 or 3. So even as we're talking buys and sells, we are kind of chasing that. We're chasing that elite fantasy tight end that's a difference maker that you can plug and play every single week. Not that there's no value in having tight end 5, but I think, again, just the difference between tight end 5 and tight end 16 is not going to be that significant for you most years. So without further ado, let's get into it. Who is your first tight end buy?
I'm going with TJ Hawkinson here. And he's a guy to me that's being priced too conservatively for a guy that can finish as tight end 2. He did it just a couple years ago. I think it was 2022. He finished as a tight end 2 overall, scored you a ton of fantasy points, probably helped a lot of people win leagues. And then in 2023, he followed that up, finishing as tight end 4, even though he missed a couple games. And at the end of the year, he tore his ACL. So it was a very late season ACL injury. And last year, he came back very quick. I was really kind of shocked. I thought it was a bit of misuse to kind of rush him back that quick, but he came back in week 9 and, he still had a somewhat respectable rest of the season. I thought I saw some flashes from him. He didn't score any touchdowns, but to me, with that like such a late like December injury to the ACL, like anything that he did last year was kind of icing on the cake. So I think this year, he's going to be a full year plus removed from that injury, going on 2 years removed from it, and I think he's going to be, back up to being, top 2, 3, 4 tight end for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think even with what we talked about there in the intro, like you're chasing that difference maker at tight end, and Hawkinson definitely can be that. He's already been that in his career. He's shown it. And I think he's kind of viewed as old, but he's still just 27. And we're seeing tight ends playing well into their 30s. So yeah, I think he's a nice dynasty asset, and I could certainly make an argument for him. When you look at ADP, which is what we're using Dynasty Data Labs startup ADP to kind of look at where are they going in startup drafts? Do we feel like we would take them higher or lower? How do they compare to the other guys going around them? And so when it comes to TJ Hawkinson, again, I could make the argument he should be higher than Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, who are both going above him and haven't proven anything yet. He's a good bit younger than George Kittle. Even Sam Laporta, who's going like 30 picks ahead of him in startup drafts. Sam Laporta was not that difference maker for you last year. Jameson Williams broke out. Amon-Ra is who he is. They've got 2 really high-level running backs that they're feeding. And so the target share was pretty inconsistent with Laporta. He was, a little bit touchdown dependent, not as much as some other guys. But, yeah, he finished as tight end 8 last year. And on a per game basis, he was lower than that. I believe he was tight end 9. So, 10.9 with no tight end premium, just a standard PPR format, 10.9 points per game for Sam Laporta. So, yeah, I mean, Hawkinson, you could make an argument he should be tight end 3 or tight end 4 instead of tight end 7 here. So I like that call out. For me, I went a little lower down the list, but I'm still shooting for upside here. And I want to call out David Njoku. His ADP is tight end 12, 117th overall, which I'm not a math major. Somebody who is maybe can figure out what round that is. But it's fairly far down there, right? He was last year's tight end 4 on a per game basis. Did you know that? He missed 6 games dealing with ankle, knee, and hamstring injuries, which I'll grant that at 28 years old, you got to be concerned that those injuries kind of will keep piling up or keep nagging at them. Sometimes when guys get a little older, those injuries, they become more recurring a little bit. But 28 is not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. They don't have a quarterback. They drafted Harold Fannin. Right, I get all that. I get, those things maybe make it feel gross to draft him. All that being said, it still doesn't justify his price tag being as low as it is at tight end 12. In fact, speaking of the quarterback situation, the probable starter week 1 is Joe Flacco. The last time Joe Flacco and David Njoku played together was in 2023. Flacco made 5 late season starts for the Browns. And Njoku had 30 catches, 390 yards, and 4 touchdowns in those 5 weeks. He was tight end 2 in PPR fantasy points per game with 18.2 fantasy points over that 5-week stretch with Flacco. He was a league winner that year because it was down the stretch. It was during fantasy playoffs. Last year, in Jameis Winston starts, when Winston was the starter and Njoku was healthy, he averaged over 10 targets per game. He averaged over 16 fantasy points per contest, which again was good for tight end 4 on a per game basis. So Njoku has shown the ability to be a high end producer, and the last 2 years have been the best years of his career. Like he's gone from being this tantalizing athlete with upside to actually really putting it together and being this high end fantasy tight end. And I think he's being slept on a little bit because of the age, because of the team situation, because he was hurt last year. And I just don't see, like, he's clearly the established tight end one there. I'm not worried about Fannin as a threat to his workload. 28 still young enough to give you multiple good years of production. And then you consider the range of players he's being drafted in. I mean, Tyrone Tracy, Zach Charbonnet, I don't think we expect either of them to even be their team's starting running back. Travis Etienne, some upside there if he gets the job, but like no floor whatsoever. Geno Smith, Brian Robinson, like yuck. In terms of tight ends going ahead of him, even, I'd definitely rather have Njoku than Kyle Pitts, who we're going to talk more about later this episode. I'd rather have him than Kraft or Kincaid. I mean, all those guys are going rounds ahead of him in ADP. So, yeah, even though there's some concerns, I'm buying David Njoku at this price tag.
I'll totally agree with you other than Tucker Kraft. I really like Kraft a lot. But
dude, there's like a million mouths to feed in that offense. Yeah. What has Kraft actually shown that he should be ahead of David Njoku?
He moves different for that size to me. Like he looks like one of those potential elite tight ends. Just the way he can move for a 256-pound guy. But
he averaged less than 10 fantasy points a game last year.
Yeah, just due to his age. Totally on contender. I'll take Njoku over him all day. But yeah, I do really love this call. It's just way too low for him. He's a guy who I've always really loved watching him, and it's been awesome to see him put it together the last 2 years. I just really hope that he can stay injury free so we can see that full season that he's flashed for us. But totally agree. Like all these guys that go around him, I would much rather have Njoku and take my shot on him being a potential top guy.
Yeah, and I mean, even the quarterback situation, like Flacco and Winston are the names I mentioned. It's not like they're like all-pro quarterbacks, right? So he's shown the ability to produce without elite quarterback play. Somebody's got to get targets, and I don't really see anybody besides him and Judy that is going to command any targets. So I think if he's healthy, he's going to outperform this, even if the quarterback play is poor.
Yeah, and even when the quarterback play is poor, like if the quarterback's bad, he's typically using his tight end as a security blanket. So to me, it doesn't affect them as much as it does wide receivers who are.
And they're playing from behind, which means they got to air it out. Yep. Yeah, for sure. So, all right. So those are our two tight end buys, TJ Hawkinson and David Njoku. Both of those probably a little bit more contender buys, but again, they're young enough. You could conceivably get 5 or 6 years out of them, which even for a rebuilding team, like, the price is low enough. It's at least worth inquiring and seeing what that price tag is. So we're going to take a quick break before we talk about some tight end sells. And I got to let you guys know about our resources at CouchScouts.com. You can join the Couch Scouts family. We are more than just a podcast. We are a community, and we've got resources, tools, advice for you guys. We have a rookie guide if you're still doing rookie drafts, where you can get in there. We've scouted over 70 prospects, in-depth film breakdown, scouting report, film grade, ranking, tiers, color-coded. It's everything you need to dominate your rookie draft. We have bonus podcasts every single week. As soon as we get off of this main show, Rupert and I are going to go record a wide receiver dynasty rankings episode for our members only. We do team consultations, so you can book 30 minutes with one of us to go in detail over your roster, make a plan, a strategy for you to attack your dynasty league. And we've gotten really, really positive feedback on the people that have taken advantage of that. So definitely lots of great resources for you guys. We've got an all 22 film room. You can get all those things for as little as $5 a month or save 15% with an annual subscription. So don't wait. We're even running, I haven't shut the code down yet. We ran a Father's Day promotion. So you can use the code DadsLoveDynasty and save yourself 25% off of the product on any of our annual subscriptions. So Dads Love Dynasty. Definitely a good time to join the Couch Scouts family. So Without any further ado, let's get into our tight end sells for the night, and I will throw it back to you, Mr. Rupert.
I am selling Dalton Kincaid. He is a guy that, came into the league with a ton of hype, being a highly drafted tight end, getting the dream pairing, going to, catch passes from Josh Allen. He was an older prospect, so I don't know how many people know that he's already 25. And, last year he had every opportunity to really become a target hog and, be that kind of dynasty asset that you want. They lost their number one wide receiver. They lost their number two wide receiver. It could not have been a more perfect opportunity for him. And, just kind of fell flat last year. He only earned 75 targets last year and only caught 44 passes and finished as tight end 30 for a guy that, it's not like he's 21 years old, still kind of coming into his own as a tight end. He was 25 and finished as tight end 30. He's being valued right now as tight end 8, going 94th overall. Not saying that, he's never going to be it, but I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to be a top 5 guy ever. Just based on the season last year, he's not going to have any more of a perfect opportunity than he had last year. And I think he still just has so much name value. I would sell him and get some value.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, I really liked Dalton Kincaid as a prospect. I enjoyed the tape, the draft capitals there, landing spot, everything you mentioned. But for whatever reason, it just hasn't clicked. They've continued to do a 2 tight end system with him and Knox. And, so he's not getting that ultra concentrated snap percentage that you want from a top fantasy tight end. He's definitely not the target hog. He didn't establish himself. Not only did he not establish himself as the top option on that team when he had every opportunity to, but I'm not even sure he was a top 3 in targets. I don't have that number in front of me, but I mean, definitely Coleman, before he got hurt, was out targeting him. And then, man, who's their slot guy? I'm totally blanking on the name. Yeah, Khalil Shakir definitely was out targeting him. So anyway, yeah, he did not step up. And I know that sometimes it takes tight ends some time to develop. I get that. But how many times have you seen a first round pick at tight end where in year 2 with that kind of opportunity, they did nothing with it and then later ended up being a stud? I know that the 3-year tight end development curve is a thing, but it's not like somebody that has just shown absolutely nothing through 2 years with every opportunity just gets magic fairy dust sprinkled on him in year 3 and all of a sudden he can play football. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm pretty pessimistic on his ability to turn this around, and tight end 8 feels crazy high. So with that being said,
speaking of being crazy high,
speaking of first round tight ends that haven't done anything and still have name value, Kyle Pitts. Okay. Tight end 11, 109th overall. Come on. What are we doing here, people? I mean, we said this with George Pickens last week, but when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And I know, I can already hear people saying, he had 1,000 yards as a rookie. Okay, but that was 2021, people. 2021. He's been completely unusable for fantasy for 3 straight years since then, and people just refuse to learn their lesson. I mean, targets are earned. We say that all the time. There's no there's a target vacuum. There's nobody else. It's like, no, they'll find somebody else. If you're out there and you're running routes and you're playing snaps and they're not targeting you, it's because you're not getting open. And Kyle Pitts is not getting open. And when he has been targeted, he's had a pretty decent drop rate too. I remember one last year, he was wide open in the end zone. They threw it to him and it just bounced right off his hands. And you could just see the frustration. And I mean, the Falcons tried so hard to make Kyle Pitts a thing. They invested a top 5 NFL draft pick in him. And so they gave him every opportunity. He's been out there as a starter for 4 seasons, and he's lost their trust. His first read target share and his offensive snap percentages have plummeted. Weeks 1 through 11 last year, he was playing 70+% snaps pretty much every week. But clearly the team got fed up, and coming out of the Week 12 bye, he was on the field for less than 50% of snaps every week from weeks 13 through 18. Like they're not even using him. He was not earning targets. He was the tight end 39 during that stretch with an average of 4.8 fantasy points per game. 4.8. And people will blame Kirk Cousins, who admittedly didn't look good last year, but it's just another excuse in a long line of excuses for Kyle Pitts. And they'll say maybe now with Michael Penix, he'll finally be a thing. But guess what? He caught 7 passes in 3 weeks that Michael Penix was the starter. They were out there together. We saw it. And he wasn't usable for fantasy football with Michael Penix. He wasn't playing 50% of the snaps. He wasn't earning targets. He wasn't scoring fantasy points. And, the most likely explanation for all of this, folks, nobody wants to hear it, but by far the most likely explanation is that Kyle Pitts is not a good NFL tight end. Point blank. That's the most likely explanation. Now he's dealing with a foot injury. He's missing camp. The team is frustrated. They're reportedly actively shopping him in trades. So, if you're looking for a tiny little sliver of hope, which everybody is, maybe he gets traded and a new team and a fresh start could be good for him. But that still doesn't justify his price tag as a top 12 dynasty tight end. He's going in the same range as guys like Cortland Sutton, Josh Downs, Chris Godwin, DeAndre Swift, James Conner. These guys are useful starters for your fantasy team. You are trading, even if it's only for 2 or 3 years, even if it's 1 or 2, because of James Conner, he's old, right? People hate buying old people in Dynasty. But if you're telling me that I can get 2 years of starting production out of somebody for a guy that was just going to sit on my bench, or I was going to plug him in and get frustrated because he laid another egg for me, get the roster clogger off of my roster. Give me these guys that I can start in my lineup week in and week out. And they're likely going to have more sell value in season than Pitts because they're going to be producing. Somebody's going to get hurt. A team's going to need a running back or a wide receiver. And they're going to be like, yeah, I'll trade a second for Cortland Sutton, or yeah, I'll trade a second for Chris Godwin. They're not going to trade a second for Kyle Pitts when he goes out there and inevitably disappoints again. I mean, I could also name quite a few tight ends going multiple rounds later than him that I would rather have. All of this to say, I view Pitts as essentially a dead dynasty asset at this point, and I think you should too.
I don't know what more I can add to that. You really hit the nail on the head. I was floored when I saw what his current ADP is and that he's going to tight end 11. Just shocked.
I mean, people will be so quick to point out that he's still just 24 years old. That's the thing that they're hanging their hat on, is that he's 24 years old and he did something good once as a rookie. But they just refuse to give up on this guy.
Yeah. It's been a rough last couple seasons, and I'm so glad I had 0 shares.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any left lying around either, but if I do, I would take just about anything for him. So if you're listening and you play in a league with me and you happen to notice Kyle Pitts on my roster, send an offer. If it's anything above a 4th round pick, I'd say there's a good chance I'll accept it. So, well, that's our tight end buys, TJ Hawkinson and David Njoku, and our tight end sells, Dalton Kincaid and Kyle Pitts. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show, found some value here. And if you haven't, join our Discord. It's completely free. You don't have to be a member on our website to access the Discord. We just want to get to know the people who listen to our show. There's a great community in there of over 250 guys that are constantly talking Dynasty Fantasy Football.
And girls.
There are some girls in there too. That is true. And yeah, it's just a fun community. I mean, happy Father's Days to each other, posting steak pictures, reacting to trades, all of the things. And we even started up a new Devy League. So there were some guys that said, hey, I'd be interested in trying out Devy. and we said, hey, is anybody willing to commish? And we tagged everybody, and we found 12 guys pretty quick, and we started up a brand new Devi startup because some people wanted to try out the format. So people are posting orphans in there. Like if you're looking to join a new Dynasty or Devi league, Couch Scouts is a great place to do that in the Discord. So definitely check out the free Discord. Appreciate you guys giving this show a listen, and we'll see you